A dragon is no slave. Tyrion Lannister. They have a dragon. Lord Tywin said with a severe tone. He remained calm as always. The commanders were in the main tent planning what to do next. They needed to chase the northern host as soon as they could. We should march on them at once. We have the men and the resources. One of the officers said. Fool, Tyrion thought. No way, they will march on us soon. My scouts spotted the bulk of their army. They are close. Another lord said. We can't chase them without leaving Jaime's army isolated in the Riverlands. We need to gather more men in the Westerlands. His uncle Kevin said. They have a dragon. Lord Tywin raised his tone. Silence reigned inside the tent. I didn't see a direwolf during the battle. Robb Stark is not with the bulk of his army. Tyrion said with his distinctive irreverence. It was a funny situation for Tyrion. They massacred many Stark men in the battle, but he could notice that his father, the almighty Tywin Lannister, was nervous. I saw a white direwolf with the riders that flanked us the other day. The bloody beast massacred almost a dozen of our horses and men. That green boy is there. Lord Tywin said. He looked thoughtfully at the map on the table. Ser Gregor, I want you to ride for Riverrun with 500 riders and take that castle once and for all. The mountain rose from his chair and with a subtle bow he left the tent. The man was a giant for Tyrion, a mad dog from House Clegane. The rumors said that he was the one who killed Rhaegar's children with his own hands and then raped his wife, Princess Elia Martell. What can we do against a dragon, my lord? Kevin asked. It's a small dragon, but I saw the creature burn a dozen horses at once, but they knew that we didn't have archers. I want at least 20 archers among our other units, no more surprises. The Grey Lion commanded with no one to question his orders. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Tywin said as he sat on his chair and poured some wine in his golden goblet. Tyrion and the other lords were leaving when he heard his father's voice. Not you, he said as he poured wine in another goblet. Tyrion tried to reach for it, but his father took it out of his reach. Your savages fought well. They are good at killing, just like some people in this army, though they prefer killing men and not mothers and their children. He answered. His father was no fool at all. He would understand his message immediately. Tywin gave him a killing glare, nothing new to the dwarf of Casterly Rock. We will defeat this green boy in a couple of days and we will make him bend the knee to Joffrey, but before that I need you to go to King's Landing. And do what? Tyrion asked. Rule. You'll rule his hand in my name and you will bring that boy king into reason. His father said with his particular tone. Why me and not Jaime? He asked. The idea of ruling the capital sounded weird for him. You're my son and Jaime is busy making pay the Tullus for what they did to you. Lord Tywin said, but before you go I will need you to lead those savages. We will hit those northern fools once and for all. Tyrion emptied his goblet and rose on his feet. I should tell the good news to my men then. With that he left his father in the tent, the idea of ruling still ringing in his ears. Astapor. Danarys Targaryen. After many months of traveling through Essos, getting tributes and threats from many cities, the Khalasar finally reached the city of Astapor. Dany was proud of her people. They made their way across the continent without raping and pillaging. The Dothraki were strong people and thanks to her dragons and her sworn knights she changed their lifestyle. They stood in front of the big gates of the Red City until a group of men came out to meet her and her advisors. She spotted many masters, slavers, small men compared to the mother of dragons. A young slave translated the master's words. She spoke the common tongue perfectly, with a sweet, but strong at the same time, voice. Her curly hairs were dark brown and her eyes looked like molten gold. Dany compared them to Balerian's own eyes. The good masters of Astapor welcome you to one of the greatest cities in this part of the world. If you wish ye buy or sell slaves, you're in the right place. The girl said with her solemn tone. Dany was ready to speak when Ser Jorah interrupted her. Our Khaleesi wishes to see some of your Unsullied. The old knight said. He gave her an apologetic look. If the Targaryen bitch wants to buy some Unsullied, she can see them, but she will need more than her cunt to buy them, one of the masters said in bastard Valyrian. He was fat like a cow and had a black-red beard, a grotesque man for Danarys and for any sane woman. The good masters Krasny's Monaclaws would feel honored to show you the Unsullied, but he needs to know if you can afford them. The young girl translated. Dany understood that they didn't know that she could understand their words. She angry, but Ser Jorah stooped her before she could respond to the rude words of Krasny's. We have enough gold to buy some of them. We thank you for the opportunity to see the most lethal men on this side of the world. Ser Jorah said with a polite tone. With that, the master left them with an open invitation to see the Unsullied the next day. They settled the camp and started to argue which route they would follow to make the plan succeed. These men are no fools, Khaleesi. We need to make them think that we truly want to buy those Unsullied. If they see even the smallest glint of treason or treachery, they will close the gates and declare war against you. Ser Jorah said. The fallen and disgraced knight knew many aspects of the wild Essos. It was like a different world compared to Bravos or Pentos. Then what do you suggest to fool them? She asked naively. Despite being a Khaleesi, she was still young. She had many things to learn about ruling. Riella stepped forward and cleared his throat. These men, they speak in bastard Valyrian. We should make them think that we don't understand what they're saying. We are no threat if we look foolish enough to them. Dany nodded after hearing her mother's idea. It would be perfect. But the only problem was Viserys. He was too stubborn to obey her orders. Their relationship was crumbling down like an old house and Dany didn't know what to do. The night before, Viserys tried to hit her again and Ago stopped him before he could slap her. After planning what they would do to succeed in the next couple of days, Dany dismissed her personal guard and went in the search of her brother in the camp they settled in the outskirt of the Red City. She knew from Eyrie that Viserys was spending time with Doria in his tent. When she entered, she found her sleeping wrapped in his bed's furs, and he was sitting on a poor chair stirring coals in a small hearth. You didn't come to our meeting this afternoon, she said with an accusing tone. Have you been busy? She asked mischievously. It doesn't matter if I assist to those silly meetings. You and those old fools always treat me like a stupid child. He answered bitterly, his dark violet eyes shining with the light emanated from the burning coals. Dany let out a big sigh. You always make things complicated. What have I done against you? Why do you have to despise me? I do what I do for us, for our house. She bridged the distance between them as Viserys rose on his feet. Us? Do you have any idea how it feels to lose everything you ever wanted? Viserys asked. His eyes were wide open, looking at her directly. I was born to be a king. I saw the fall and disgrace of our house because of our fool brother. When those knights came and told us that his bastard was dead, I knew that it was my time to bring back greatness to OUE house. But then you walked out of the fire with 3 dragons. His eyes were glimmering, fighting against the tears. Dany held his face in her hands, a lonely tear running down her cheek. Since I was a little girl, I only wanted a brother. I used to have one, but he disappeared completely the day he sold me to Khal Drogo. I never asked for any of this. It's hard to be responsible for so many people. It's hard to take decisions that could cost our lives. I don't want to be a queen. I just want to go home, to see the sunset sea and the wall, and take my children there. You were destined to be mine, Dany, as our parents did. With that said, he kissed her. It was rough and unpleasant for Dany. She immediately pushed him back. But now I understand that I lost you the day you walked out of that fire, he said. His mind was finally completely lost, and Dany knew it. He walked forward and wrapped his hands around her neck with strength. She tried to fight against him, but he was stronger. Dany felt the pressure of the blood in her eyes, and the absence of air clouded her eyes. Doria woke up with the noises she made trying to catch some air and ran out of the tent to find help. When she felt that she was losing her consciousness, something inside her made her finally move. She rose her knee with the strength that she had in that moment and hit Viserys' crotch. He let out a cry of agony and released her from his grip. Every breath that she took was a gift now. You little whore, he said with anger and fury. His face and eyes were offset. He slapped her, making Dany fall. She wasn't able to stand up. When she tried to get on her feet, a heavy kick found its way to her belly, knocking the air out of her. The pain was unimaginable and only got worse when the second kick came. "Let's see if they love you after I have finished with you," he said as he rose his fist ready to drop it directly on her face. The pain that Dany felt left her unable to raise her arms to defend herself. She saw the fist making its way to her face and closed her eyes, but it never touched her. When Dany opened her eyes, she saw Ser Jorah and Ser Oswell stopping Viserys and tackling him. Once he was on the ground, Jogo placed his arak on his neck ready to end his existence, but Dany stopped him before he could swing it. Riella walked into the tent and saw her children on the ground. Daenerys looked offset. Looking into the emptiness in the wall, she was lost, thinking in what to do with her brother. "I'll give you a horse and some food, but I want you to leave us and never come back. I will demand your head if I ever see you again, and I only do this for our mother. Goodbye, Viserys." She got on her feet, but the pain persisted in her lower belly. She put her hands over it, and she saw her dress colored with her own blood. It ran between her thighs. "Mother," she asked as panic started to reign in her mind. A moment later she passed out. She was burning in fever, sweat coated her brow and temples. Breathing was difficult. The pain persisted in her lower abdomen. She saw one of the healers looking at her before passing out again. She walked inside an empty room. She could only hear the laughter of children, running and yelling, but she couldn't see them. Then she saw a big lemon tree. It looked green and alive. Its fruits were beautiful, almost perfect. Dany remembered her childhood, the house with the red door and the lemon tree. She felt happiness and hope. She only wanted to go home, but suddenly the laughter stopped. The tree started to drop its fruits. They rotted immediately on the ground as the tree began to dry and squirm until it was in the floor, the corpse of her hopes laying on the ground in front of her. Hopeless, she walked out of the room, but Balerian's screech made her turn around only to see the dead tree burning. It made her realize what she needed to do. She needed to be a dragon and forge a new world for her children. She never thought about having children, but it wasn't an unimaginable thing for her. After all, she needed to reforge her house now that